We've had grown men cry to see water come out for the first time in their whole life, where they live.
Water is our opportunity to actually be happy and to have a full life and to have to be able to see into the future, not live day by day, not to be in survival mode. That's what water is to have a life full of dreams. Ja, it's Ash Aya Stephanie Hall Yunishin. My client are Kintlachitni, Nishlit, Netnazetni Bashishchi, Kiani Dashate, Sanjakini Dashanilla. Talani Lake Enterprises is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, native-led organization located in Talani Lake, a Navajo community in the southwest corner of the Navajo Nation and in northern Arizona. Its mission is to strengthen food, water, and economic systems. It actually started off as a business incubator intended to provide support and resources to our local producers so that they could become producers in a way to support their families, to sell their produce, to create value-added products. But early on, the founding members realized that there are a lot of systemic issues and barriers and challenges when it comes to helping producers acquire land and establish water infrastructure. And those bureaucracies are established, are deep-seated in the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Navajo Nation codes, and in the state of Arizona. So we have three systems that really sometimes work against each other and prevent producers from meeting the objectives of establishing farms and gardens. The stories are countless. I've been in this community or these communities for about 10 years now. And I've worked with local elected officials and council delegates as in this nonprofit to understand and to try to find resources and educate people about what's happening in this region. We have, oh my gosh, there are families whose only source of water is contaminated with uranium, and so they have to haul in that water into their home, and they use it. They don't use it for domestic use. They use it for like their plumbing, and they use it for gray water. And unfortunately, families like that have higher rates of cancer, and they have, and the problem with, some of these situations is that they have nowhere else to go. That was their family homeland, and that's where their family grew up, and that's where their house is, and that's where the foundation is, and it's not like they can just pick up and leave. And so they've had to find solutions, and those are the types of stories where we try to find resources and figure out how we can help in the best way possible. Throughout this whole region, if you drive from Cameron all the way to Loop, you'll pass over 50 uranium mines. And these uranium, they're naturally occurring, but some of them were, mined, and the uranium was extracted. And, because of that, it's increased the contamination levels in our area. And there's been a lot of efforts for remediation, but, it's kind of slow going. It's very slow going. So when you talk about providing a well to a community like Black Falls that faces these issues every single day, and now they have access to clean water, it becomes a whole new level. It just brings them up to a whole new level, and no longer are they in kind of like that in that mode of survival. Now they can kind of think about building their own economies and what that means for their families and future generations. And that's just a starting point. That's just a starting point. We've had a number of projects over the years, and those projects are developed and planned and initiated to address a lot of those issues. But we haven't had a real investment into these community-based initiatives, especially from the Navajo Nation or tribal level. And so this project was an exception to that. It was actually a pretty exciting to plan it out. And we had started off at a much larger amount, but it got scaled down through the weeks while we were planning it. But right, so this project is $3.46 million TLE COVID Relief Initiative, granted to us by the Navajo Nation Water Resources Department using their water funding for the larger Navajo Nation Tribal Cares Act funding. And this initiative was really planned out not just by us, but by multiple grassroots and organizers and organizations throughout this region, all of who we have worked with in the past to strengthen food and water security. And so because we had to plan really quickly, we established objectives that made sense in our priorities already. What we do is we manage funding in a responsible way to establish trust with our funders, who we call sponsors. We have many different funders: private, state, tribal, and federal government sponsors. And it is through our systems of accountability and transparency that not only establishes trust with our funders, but also the communities that we serve. Our nation, our community members have a lot of challenges and barriers when it comes to management and administration. And so our organization is set up so that we can help our local communities bring in resources in a way that is that build relationships between funding opportunities and the communities that we serve. So it's really about trust and responsibility and maintaining that trust so that we can continue to bring resources to our communities. So a large reason why we haven't had these types of projects before is because it's very complicated to get access to water. There's a lot of steps and permissions that you have to go through in order to establish a water point, a new well. And so a part of this project is to go through the steps of permission to surveys, which is basically asking the local community members, the local chapter officials, and the stakeholders for permission to go out into the land and to scope out where a good source would be, and to take data and to pair those things together and make good decisions about where a well site should be. And so we collect those permissions of surveys and we take that to the Navajo Nation and we say, see, this is a place that we need to drill, and this is how many community members it's going to impact, and the grazing permittee holders in that area have given their blessing to move forward with this project. Those objectives really were intended to provide new well. So we brought in well drillers and they drilled new wells. And then once they drilled those new wells, we tested the water, the quantity and the quality of that water. And once it was established that that was a good point for us to create a water source, we installed water tanks, some 24,000 gallon water tanks. And with those water tanks, there's a connex, a generator, and a pump that is installed at a place that makes sense at a high elevation typically. And most of those sites, they have two pipes coming out of them, so that one goes towards a place where the community members can come and fill up their water tanks, and another one comes out to an agricultural garden site, to a hoop house or a farm.
Yate Shi'e Nicholas Ashley Dasha Jine Shi'e Titna Jine Nishlin Do Katna Sunny Bashish Chin Na Kai Dasha Che Do Ki Ani Dashanelle Akut the Nenshle. My name is Nicholas Ashley. I'm from Techolca, New Mexico. So I'm here at the well site um, here in Cameron, Arizona, working on a test well. I've been shadowing underneath a hydrologist as well as a hydrologist by the name of Gary Hicks as well as Jacques Serron. And today we're collecting samples of the soil and how deep the drill is going. So every 5 feet we're taking soil samples, and they're gonna take these samples and determine what's under our feet. And since we're in this good area, there's plenty of water underneath. So here's the first sample. The 5 foot mark is just mainly sand. Here's another sample of the 15-foot mark, and it's mainly like sand and little tiny pebbles. Not too sure what the rocks are called. And this is at 30 feet. We kind of hit water. At about 15 feet, we had a burst of water come through, but at 30 feet right now and 35, where the rig is sitting, this came out, which is like really muddy, chocolatey water that's underneath our feet. You know, have running water or have some water wells accessible to the community out here, because I mean, the water scarcity, we live in the desert. So these wells, hopefully when all the tests come back and you know, they get the green light to do more wells and the water is safe to drink, then this project will be beneficial all across the Navajo Nation.
So objective 5 was to purchase 5 water trucks in order to deliver water, clean water, to families out in the remote areas, our most vulnerable community members, including our elders. A lot of the homes in our region are completely off-grid. They're out in the remote areas, and for them to get access to water, it's a matter of hauling, sometimes 100-mile round trip just to, bring water back to their homes. And if you're going to go 100 miles, you're not going to go just for the water. You're going to stop and you're going to pack up all your groceries. And so in order to help mitigate or to help relieve that concern, we purchased these water trucks, and I'll have water drivers to fill up the tanks and to bring water to homes that are scattered out there and have multi-generational families and elders living in them. So now we have 5 new trucks in 5 communities that are hauling water to our most vulnerable community members, and they're doing it right now. A lot of the drivers are hauling water on a volunteer basis until we get additional funding for this activity. But it's something that a lot of our elders and community members are very grateful for, and it has done a lot of really good it's made a lot of really good impact in our communities already, and we see going into the future being able to fundraise so that we can continue that particular objective.
Caroline Johnson. That's my colonized name, and I reside here approximately 7 miles northeast of Forest Lake Chapter House, and I live in a hogan. I do not have running water, electricity, but I do have a solar, which is very convenient, and I do have livestock. I've got horses, sheep, and I've got dogs. And to stay warm, I have a wood stove, and to cook, I have propane And for light, I use the solar, if not kerosene lantern. So my day begins very early in the morning. I rise. First thing I do is feed my animals first. Then I feed myself. Then there's work to be done.
My name is Bryant Yago. Today we are building rain gutters water systems, which is to protect or to preserve water that's collected from the rain, and it's going into the gutters and then transferring it to a barrel, and that just collects all the water. So that's what we got set up back here on this hogan. Oh yeah, I think it's important because people out here on the reservation hardly have running water, and it's hard for their animals and their livestock to get the water sources. So it's easier for them just to set this up and water's collected for them and they just give it to their animals.
I do appreciate our young people, like the young individuals there. They were taught well. For them to volunteer, for them to come to my home and to help me. And there should be more of that. You know, I know that it makes me so thankful. I am honored. I am blessed that I'm getting, help there. And it's not through the tribe. I didn't go to the chapter for this. It was just by coincidence. And so I appreciate Roberto and the young folks there working on the gutter so I can have water, and that's so neat. I look forward.
Yeah, she Tyrone Thompson when she said na Jenny Ishlo na Kate Jenny Bashas Chin, although cut cheating dash a che na Kate Jenny dash another, and I am here from Loop, Arizona, as we're currently in Loop near Old Loop. So this is where my family is from. My grandparents are from up in Tulani Lake area. My grandfather's from Tulani Lake area. So yeah, welcome to Chiji Farms. And my team is in charge of growing food, and we are the hoop house team. So we have constructed 6 hoop houses in our region, 100-foot hoop houses, 16 by 100 feet, and they're almost turning into instant gardens like you've seen today and yesterday. We have a really great team that's planting away, one that's building. So there's a lot of moving parts, to say the least. We're building a post-harvest station. We're building a solar array to power this post-harvest station, which will have a walk-in cooler and a packing station to where we're able to safely wash and clean and pack all the fresh greens. We also have donated several sheep to feed people, because we feel that sheep are a little bit more culturally relevant for some of our folks, and we're calling them comfort foods. And with some of our gardens there, we call them healing gardens, because I think a lot of us are going through a lot of healing from historic trauma, and just coming from a bad place, trying to go into the future in a good way. So I think when we originally started out, the gardens were back in '05. I think it was called Healing Gardens, and we started with NAU diabetes prevention. And so back then, some of these farms that we're visiting now were dormant, and we've brought them back to life, and it's through the efforts of many hands. We're just a few of them that have been involved in some of these projects. People like Tulani Lake Enterprise, North Loop Family Farms, and a lot of the elders that have passed, that have paved the way for us to do this type of work. So we always give them credit and commend them, because if it weren't for their prayers and their offerings, we wouldn't be here doing the stuff that we're doing today. So we definitely commend them for all of their hard work and dedication as well. But going into the future, we plan on, potentially being the breadbasket of Arizona, practicing regenerative agriculture along the Little Colorado River, growing pasture, building up our soils, feeding our people, feeding our animals, and just showing how farming could be economically viable in an area where we, again, have some of the highest unemployment rates. We have some of the highest diabetes, food-related diseases. Like I said, 1 in 3 of us has diabetes, obesity, or overweight, or some type of food-related disease. And pre-contact, we didn't have none of these problems. So I don't like to be regulated by USDA, FDA. I think they're part of the problem, not part of the solution. Again, our people have sustained ourselves since time immemorial with our practices, and life expectancy on Navajo before our food was disturbed, was in the hundreds. 100-year-old was typical life expectancy for Navajo. Now we have a hard time making it to 60, 75 years old, because of the food, because of the fast food, the junk food, the sugary food, the bleached flours, all of the bad foods. So that's really what our mission here is, to bring, nutrient dense food, which is it builds immune systems. It's just good overall for both people, land and people, and so we're just trying to educate our people on how to utilize. So food literacy for us is a big thing as well, to educate people on how to utilize some of these greens. So we'll try to maybe get some video on how to prepare a nice salad or salad dressing, because again, I am trying to do some of the sheep, but I obviously can't feed everybody, but we are just doing as much as we can, and within a small time frame, which is kind of ludicrous to be trying to grow food in the wintertime. But luckily we're in a place, in a position, to where we're already practicing growing year round. So this just really shines a light on what we're able to do and what we're capable, if given the resources, what we're about. So that's just a little bit about us, I think.
Ja, skeda chene she Felix Earl when she todi chini shlo taban bashchin. So na jini deshe other Belgian national with adin shle. Hello everyone, ja, my name is Felix Earl. I am of the Bitterwater clan, and I am born for the Water's Edge clan. My maternal grandfathers are the Black Street Running Into the Water clan, and my paternal grandfathers are the Black Sheep clan. So that's how I introduce myself to the universe as a Dinah man. What we have behind us is we're standing in a small shade house right now. It's just like a greenhouse or a hoop house, you would say. Right now, this part of it is covered with shade cloth. But we extended it another 100 foot to the west, so that is covered with a plastic film. So it's a lot hotter in there. The shade cloth area is a lot cooler. It's just we have a little bit of more of like a ventilation. So right now the workers are working on putting in no-till beds, meaning that what we're just basically doing is we brought in a bunch of compost mulch, and we're putting about 4 to 5 inches of that on top of cardboard, and we're running it along the sides of the hoop house, and then once that's laid down, we're going to be transplanting seedlings into them. So that's what we're doing right now. If you can probably see, you can see that long white cloth that's along the ground here. That's actually ag cloth, and the reason why we brought that out is because we're cutting that down to size. So when we leave tonight from this area, whomever is the last to leave is going to be able to cover the seedlings. So that's just going to provide another layer of protection when the temperature drops here. So right now it's pretty hot in there because the sun's out, and which that's pretty awesome. But once the sun sets, the temperature will drop really fast. So that's just to provide just a little bit of more coverage and warmth for our plants here. We actually have kale. We have two types of kale. We have a what we call is a mixed lettuce. There's like romaine, there's some red, there's radicchio, there's tatsina, and some other seeds. But it's just a mix of lettuces. So that be growing in here. And then I believe we'll also have chard. So we're attempting cool weather crops. So those are cool weather crops. Those are crops that can handle cool weather. We're not going to be growing like squash or anything like that in here at this time because those plants wouldn't make it through this temperature. So cool weather crops are what we're focusing on right now. So, but once spring comes, and then that's when we're going to change the focus onto more like warm weather crops like the squashes and the melons and things like that. So and the chilies and the tomatoes. The self-pollinating plants will go in here. Like the chilies and the tomatoes. Some squash are self-pollinating now, but most of them aren't. So you gotta have the pollinators involved, and of course pollinators can hardly get into these spaces at times.
Yate she Nathaniel Tsidiginsia, Sanjikin in Isla, Twitzati Bashachin, Kia Ani Dashite do Kia Ani Dashana. I am Nathaniel Itzidi. I am cliff dwelling people born for big water people, and my paternal and maternal grandparents are of the towering house people. So, and that is me as a Diné person. The youth are our future, and unfortunately most youth don't know anything about food or about the realities of what it takes to sustain a people. And to see young people like this take interest and absorb all the knowledge and techniques that we're handing to them, it gladdens me that the future has them, So it's hope, they represent hope, and it's awesome to see young people doing this, and that's actually what most of our work is about. It's about inspiring the youth to be self-sufficient, to be sustainable, and to realize that poverty is a state of mind, and because we live in such a climate of scarcity, a supposed scarcity, we try to teach them that this is a point of view, and if we change our consciousness, we can change our living situations and uplift our people.
What water really is. I think a world without water is not a world.
Ayo choneko, ha be ha jo le le ya na